Hello, this is Matti. I thought that we'd take a little look into tremolo picking, which is a pretty important technique in many ranges of music, ranging from folk music into surf music and extreme metal music. But I'll concentrate on the metal part because it's so wide area to go into in its fullness. So what I mean by tremolo picking, well, it's this technique where you take a note and instead of playing a single note, you play many notes in succession, like it can be pretty lax or rather rapid, depending on the context. You can also play it with chords, and that's often used in many metal styles. But you can hear my clean sound is like this. It's not that well suited for tremolo picking in metal styles, although it has been used in other styles. But so let's start with the tone. You want a healthy amount of distortion, but not so much that you can't figure out what's going on. So as clear sound as possible, not too much bass. Let me show you what happens if I add any bass. I have currently set my bass to 0, so I'll add it to halfway point. And listen, check this out. It gets even more prominent if I add more. At first you can kind of think that, hey, this sounds really massive, but put that into a band context and you can't, you're making a whole mess of things. People can't hear what you're playing. That can be a cool vibe, but I at least want that people hear the riffs. So the next thing is that because you're playing single note lines many times, like for instance in Immortals at the Heart of Winter, there's a riff that's a little bit like this. So you need a little bit of support there because it can get a little bit thin. So as well as the bass joining in, you can kind of fill things out by adding just a touch of delay. So you can hear it's the decay of the delay. The repeats are not that loud and they are a little bit dark. So again. So not that you really notice that it's there, and just a touch of reverb to fill it out a little bit more. You don't want to go overboard with these things. Well, I guess there are styles where you use a lot of reverb, like let's say a classic song would be Emperor's however you say yeah in Trans Imperium. So the opening riff. So it's drenched in reverb, at least on the album. But at the same time, it's a lot clearer if you don't go overboard with the reverb. Yeah, so that's the basics of the sounds. So how to approach playing it? We can take a little bit easier riff in the beginning. Let's pick another song from Emperor, I Am the Black Wizards, and the intro riff is rather easy place to start. It's so you can see I'm using my wrist to pick it, and I try to keep as relaxed as possible. So things to consider also is that keep cognizant of what tempo you're playing in, and try to match your pick strokes into the drums or with the drums, so you don't kind of so you get a powerful effective sound. So and slow down. If your right arm gets tired or your wrist gets tired, I guess the forearm would be where you start feeling it. You can switch to another technique where you bring more of the elbow in. So and you can kind of alternate those techniques when your other muscles get tired, so you get a little bit of time to recover for the next part. And really there's a couple of places even in that riff where you can get a little break. So you get a couple of strokes in the beginning where you can get a little bit of respite and rest. So take all of those little breaks as a gift where you can rest just a little bit. Yeah, so that's pretty easy. Double stop line with power chords, and the thing that comes next is a little bit more involved. It has some string skipping, like so as a whole it sounds something like this. Yeah, so you can kind of hear how you have to stay locked in with the other players, so it stays effective. It can get a little bit, you can easily get a little bit lost even because all of the other players are laying out some blast beats and double bass grooves and other string players are also tremolo picking, so try to keep track of where the one lands and where the chord changes are, so it's a little bit easier. But yeah, so let's explore that riff a little bit, so you can practice on this. This is it's pretty important that you kind of mute every string after you make a string skip, so they don't keep ringing out, and so it's a little bit easier to hear how it goes, like. So I'm currently using my thumb and the tips of my fingers to mute the extra strings. So like when I'm playing this octave jump here, I'm touching the first note is on the A string and the next note is on the G string. And I'm touching the D string and muting it with my other finger. So, and when I make the switch, I kind of lift my finger from the A string, but I still keep it touching there, so it mutes out the string, so I don't get this effect. Without muting, it would be. So it can get a little bit muddled. So again. At this phase, I'm kind of. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm touching the A string with the tip of my index finger. So what happens? It mutes out the strings. So that's how you could approach it. The fingerings go like this. So that's a good exercise. Another example would be riff that I wrote for my band Melding Plague, and this is the way it goes. And while this is not as physically demanding, it is a good example of how important it is to mute the strings, and it can get a little bit tricky to get a good sound out of your E string, because you can kind of get a naturally good touch from your pick from the other strings, because the E string is blocking you from approaching it too deep. But with the E string you have to be really careful, so the fingerings go like this. So you get a kind of I don't know if the triplet feel is a good word for it, but anyway. So just tremolo picking on the E string can be a good exercise. I could play that stuff. So that can be a good exercise as well. So something more advanced even, you could go into some classic bands like Dimmu Borgir, and they really ramp up the tempo for the tremolo picking. So Blessings Upon the Throne of Tyranny starts with this blisteringly fast. That's rather hard to play. I can feel my arm getting a little bit kind of straining and tense and tightened up, so I'll just try to do it with my wrist. That's a little bit hard to do with the wrist, but you try to do that also with the wrist and with the elbow. So you can have a few options to go if you find it a little bit too strenuous to go on. And another riff from that album would be from Kings of Carnival creation right after the there's this. Slowing those riffs down can be a little bit tricky, so you could hear me make a couple of mistakes, but that can be a good exercise in itself. And if you find you're not playing it out clearly, you can kind of slow it right down and try to figure out where the problem spaces are. So in tempo, I think it's just a little bit faster. Getting a little bit sloppy there. There's a variation of the same riff further along with the song, which is pretty interesting because it gets harder because it's slower, if that makes any sense. So I think it goes a little bit like this. In tempo. that's kind of killing my accuracy because the tremolo picking is a little bit slower. I guess the final riff in that song is a rather good exercise as well. I'm not sure if I've picked out completely correctly, but this is the way it goes. So in tempo. So getting a little bit tired here, but that's about how it goes. So it's a rather good string skipping exercise and keeping those extra strings muted. One final thing is with the really fast ones. I guess Aura Noir would take the cake, in my opinion. The opening track in Black Trash Attack album starts with a riff like this. I'm getting all sweating, it's a little bit hot. I'm making a mess of it, but the point is here to show you the fast tremolo picking part, which is for that to work out, it's rather important that what you're doing is not the motion of but you make use of how the string returns and how the string moves with your pick. You can kind of, when you push it, it kind of shifts into the downward direction and you can get an easier time to pick an upstroke, and that makes it move again into the another direction. It displaces into the another direction where you can kind of grip it again with the downstroke. So it's a little bit difficult to explain, but you can kind of start ramping up the speed, and you can feel it getting actually a little bit easier when you increase the speed. So starting from low tempo. You can also experiment with the placement of your hand, so it's a little bit harder to play close to the neck because the string moves so much. You need a lighter touch to achieve the same kind of rebounds. But also you can save a lot of energy, and you can get the easier time to get a clear note, but you have to work harder if you pick closer to the brick. And there are tonal changes as well, as you can hear. You can hear kind of how it sweeps through the frequency spectrum. So keep that in mind when you're trying to approach the correct feel and sound you're looking for. I haven't talked a lot about tremolo picking chords, but let's do that for ending, so we can kind of cool down together. So D minor chord works perfectly for this kind of stuff. You can hear this kind of stuff in a lot of classic black metal songs, like from the 90s and noughties. So it's usually not that fast because it's really difficult to play that stuff, play all of these 4 strings really fast, but it's usually more relaxed, like. So I guess that covers most of the basic techniques involved. Hope this has been useful to you, and don't strain yourself. Keep your wrists relaxed, and if you feel pain, take a short break and maybe try to figure out what in your approach is causing the issues. Have fun tremolo picking, everyone, and see you next time. Bye bye.